So, Russ,
The views
do you
and
know
opinions
if your
expressed within the
series,
video
if your
content
Batman
found on
series
the
will
Indie
be
Comics Network
in
are those
Portugal?
of the speakers and do not
Because
necessarily
I
reflect
wasn't
the
able to
views
find
or
anything.
positions
Shut up,
of
Marv.
the Indie Comics Network or Ragin 2 Promotion.
All right. Good morning. Sorry, Marv, but for some reason, your mic does not mute while we do this. And now I can't unmute you.
Well, Marv is on international audio delay.
Yeah.
Shut up, Marv.
Yeah, I around 5 seconds.
No, we can't talk on the backstage while everything's going on, man. I was just trying to be quick. I'm so sorry, Marv. I didn't mean anything.
No.
It was just like I gotta say something quick. Oh man, I feel like an a-hole. My bad, Marv. I wasn't trying to be an ass. I'll tell you what. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sketchy Saturday. As you can see, I am the substitute Mike Jimmy, and already doing a horrible job at it. Let's go around the room and talk to everybody about what they're doing and who they are. So, Marv, we're going to start with you. You can talk now. Go ahead, Marv.
I'm just trying to share this. Okay, so hi, I'm MarV. I'm the creator of The Sin Killer, published by Arrow Comics and Fairies and Ants. And I'm working on page 2 of Michael Hunter of Man. This is Sinner's Pit, where John takes care of business, and it's going to be a t-shirt also. This is page 2, and it's going to be a t-shirt coming soon because I'm going to make a Kickstarter campaign, and I'm working on 2 more t-shirts. So stay tuned. And let's have some fun today.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. John Celestri, let's put you up and tell us what you're working on this morning.
Oh, okay. I'm John Celestri. I'm a classic 2D animator, and I'm working on today on book 4 of Bloodwing Angel Chronicles. It's the next one that'll be coming up. So I've got my intro page that I've started roughing out, and I'll be playing around with that today.
All right. Awesome. Also, Rodney, I'm going to leave you till last because we got something special. All right?
Okay.
So don't take it personal. Mr. Russ Leach, go ahead and introduce yourself. Welcome.
Hello there. My name's Russ Leach. I'm a comic book artist from the UK. Currently just off the back end of a run on Doctor Who magazine, in the middle of a run on Batman for the UK and Europe, and also on my own book, Only Death Can Save Us, as well as a couple of other production roles that I can't really talk about at the moment. So very, very busy. You can find out all about me at russleach.com.
All right. Awesome.
Nice.
All right. And, of course, Mr. Rodney Fyke.
Sir, hey.
Go ahead. Introduce
Hi.
yourself.
I am Rodney Fyke. I am an independent comic artist for the better part of the last 30 plus years. Currently, I am with Hasm Productions, where we do titles such as Peanut Pudding and Jelly, Unchained, Roadkill Rampage, and Pitter Patter. Today, I am working on some pieces for a gaming show that we're doing in a couple of weeks. Working on some isolated Pac-Man pieces that we are going to put together in the computer and make something pretty with. So that's what I'm working on here today. And then we have a little.
And anyway, there you go. You're back. Sorry, Rodney.
That's okay.
Yeah, everybody's there. It's really hard to try to get this and move everybody around. So I'm going to kind of have to rely on my producer to do something back there. I mean, she's doing something, but anyway, look, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. It has been a rough morning as it is. So if I think I have not gotten much sleep. And for some odd reason on Friday nights, I am not getting sleep, and it's not from partying. So it's from old age.
Oh, shut up.
So this morning I'm just trying to get my coffee in because for me this starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. I was like, why do we do this so early?
9.
Stupid.
This is why I don't do Sunday funnies too. Anyway, so what I'm trying to do was I'm working on something special, and I'm Steve Michael Lanning, the horrible host of Sketchy Saturday this morning. Also, I do a show called Dispatches from Outside the Box, which I'm a little more prepared for because it happens at night. Let's see. I'm going to show you. And Rodney, you want to tell them what I'm working on?
You are working on our Haslam's new book called See, I knew I was going to do it.
It's just one of those mornings.
It's no longer issue 3 of Pitter Patter. It's now our new book called Doghouse.
All right.
And it centers around a murder investigation at the bar with the main characters being dogs and some cats and mice. So it was initially supposed to be, like I said, issue 3 of Pitter Patter, where we had decided that we were going to go a little blue with the characters. Just to try something different, and I wrote the script for it, and it was just all balls out, adult themes and everything, and people that read it loved it, but suggested that we not use the characters that everybody loves from Pitter Patter because they're so cute and fun and kid-friendly that we should just transfer it to another set of characters. So we decided that we would make it dogs instead of cats. And I came up with Doghouse, which is the name of the bar that this takes place in. And it's all still part of the Pitter Patter universe. It's just more or less Pitter Patter after dark. So
there you go.
There's an amazing page that we can't show, and we're not going to show at any point in time as a preview because we want you to see the page organically when you open it up. We can't wait for the comments.
That we might not be able to show it.
Yeah. So that's what C and I are working on currently. And then I am rewriting issue 3 of Pitter Patter. I've been working off and on that for the last couple of weeks, as well as another story that I'm writing for Ethereal Comics. So yeah, it's busy. A lot of writing.
Let's see. Let's look into our chat this morning. Good morning, Blue Teddy Narrations. How are you doing? And of course, Glenn's here.
Hey, Glenn.
Nita.
What's happening, Glenn?
Oh, not Glenn.
Let's how are you? So anyway, let's see if we can get a conversation going. One thing that I like to practice on a lot is I'm trying to get composition down. Composition to me is kind of one of the hardest things to really get. And but you know, it was a long time before I learned the rule of 3, believe it or not. That's not something that's readily taught, maybe in school, but not on the internet, not frequent. So do you guys have a certain composition y'all like to go to consistently, or like sometimes like you have the 2-line composition? Of course, you have the rule of 3s, the golden ratio. There's all sorts that you could draw from. Is there one that you'll think about when you go to the page? Anybody jump in?
No.
Yeah.
I am aware. I'm aware of such things, but I tend to use them retrospectively.
Yeah.
When I'm putting the page together. So I'll put the page together. I'll want to flow. The story is the most important thing. It's always core. So does the story flow? Is it working? And then once that's working, I'll look over the composition and go, oh, okay, that's not right. But it's very much like adjuncts and what have you, when you've got clashing lines, that kind of stuff. It's kind of sort of feeling your way through the page and then seeing it at the end and going, right, okay, well, this doesn't quite work. This panel needs to shrink, or this pop out needs to work better. So I wouldn't say it's a hard and fast rule set that I apply to whether I'm composing the page from a design perspective or composing a panel from a content perspective. So it's kind of retrospective, but it's still there. It's definitely something you apply prior to the end of a page. I just wouldn't say that's where I start from.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I all the technical things that you're so quote unquote supposed to do, I do as an afterthought because when the story comes to me fresh and hot in my mind, I'm more consumed with, okay, I gotta capture this as closely as I can to what's in my head. So all of those rules, if they work for what I've got in my head, fine. If not, then they're ignored. I thumbnail everything out quickly and based on what I'm trying to pull out of my head. And if I look at it after it's been put down on paper and it doesn't work for me schematically, flow or whatever, then I will revert to those things.
Yeah, I think it works. I think it's as far as it becomes an instinct almost.
Yeah,
really doing it.
Yeah.
I look at from the point of view of when I look at the top. Well, because I don't do manga, I'm doing Western style. I'll start at the top here, the top, and then work my way down to the bottom right. Start with the top left, work my way down, and I'm looking as how am I telling my story? I'm telling it in tiers. So I'm going to start with the beginning and then say something, a little set up, develop, and then give you a reason at the bottom to turn the page. That's my way of looking at a page. And we're talking basically your anticipation, your action, and your reaction, which is sort of three basic elements of animation. You sort of like tell the viewer you're going to do something, do it, and then tell that you've just done something.
Yeah.
And that's what that is. Yeah.
I was working on Pitter Patter, the script yesterday for issue 3, and the stories always come to me with in dialogue form. So real quick, I'll sit at the keyboard and I'll just type out all this dialogue. Buddy says this, dude says that. So I've got a page and a half of dialogue, and then I go back and okay, this is going to be a reactionary shot. This is going to be, the statement. And I break it up like that, and then now I can't have these all be headshots. So let's tilt the camera here. Let's pull the camera above or below the horizon line there. So that's kind of how I work with that too. Kind of give it a little more variety than just not a whole book of headshots.
Right. Yeah, no, please don't do that. You feel real close up to them on that. I've seen that actually. And if you don't have something, a back shot and an establishing shot or something, it feels like you're right in their face.
Yeah.
It's just very uncomfortable.
Well, you have to establish, you have to, give the environment that you're in. I mean, you don't have to do it first you establish shot and then but you have to immediately let the viewer, the reader know where are they? What environment are is this all taking place in?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I got a script a couple of years ago from somebody, and I opened it up, and we'd gone over it, and I was all excited about getting started, and I opened it up on page 1, and there was a little descriptive narrative there, and I was like, "Is it day or night? I don't know." So I had to message him real quick. It's like, dude, is this daytime or nighttime? He's like, I guess it's daytime. Okay.
Wow.
I guess.
I thought that one out well.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We know he's just flying by the seat of his pants, basically.
Yeah.
Let's see. Glenn's got some things. I'm with Russ. If you draw the page panel and it looks right, that it usually is, the story is king.
Yeah.
And don't overthink. Draw from the gut. Get your thumbnails right, and it will be right. It works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing with me is that let's say that I have this perfect image of what I want to do, like this shot here of the Sinner's Pit, and it's totally different. I can't put on paper, or in this case digital, what I'm thinking, because every time I try to put the idea, it comes the other way around. So it doesn't work very well for me. But I still have the kind of perception that how graphically the image will be the black and white. I think I can manage the balance between black and white, but when it comes to composition, everything goes the other way around. So, but that's me.
I think a certain amount of it is experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the more
Yeah.
you do it, the more you get a feel. Because if you've done so, God, how many pages have I done in my time now? I mean, it's not tens of thousands like somebody like Mike Minogue or
Right.
John Buscema or somebody like that, but it is in the thousands. There's no doubt about it. And once you've done multiple hundreds of comic book pages, you start to get a feel for what you're doing. So you
Right.
do work from the gut quite a lot. So it's difficult. It's difficult to apply hard and fast rule sets to any of it. However, there are objective realities that make a good page and make a page work. There's no doubt about that. And as Glenn was saying, most of it, and Rodney said, most of it revolves around telling the story more than anything else. So you can look for perfect ratios and rules of three and all kinds of stuff, but if it doesn't work, then it doesn't matter how many rules you apply to it, it doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Well, sometimes that stuff can come off looking very flat too by following that technical.
Yeah, exactly. If you just follow the numbers, then you're not letting your creativity flow. And that sounds really rank, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's a truth. It is a truth. It's a creative process, and so you can't restrict yourself too much by the rules. I mean, all you need to do is look at old comic book stuff from, I think, by around the Bronze Age. I know I've got a love of the Bronze Age. The Silver Age and Golden Age of comic books were quite staid because they had so much text on them. We talk about text these days, but there really was a lot of text back then.
Yes.
But around the Bronze Age, things started to level out, whereby there was just the right amount of text for just the right amount of action on the page. And if you look at layouts then, and grand panel grids, funnily enough, we were talking about this on Comics by Night the other day. A lot of the, prior to Stalin and Adams getting involved and sort of crazying it up, as it were, you had 5-6 panel grids, and they were just squares. The panels were just squares, and all the excitement came from the composition within each panel.
Oh, yeah.
And then the panel itself was broken down within that. And so much of that, I believe, so much of that was just done with creative flair and ability from the artists that were involved. They're credited with having these abilities that sit around these rule sets, but it wasn't. I don't believe any of them sat down with a rule set and did something. They just made it. They made it happen. They created it, and then they tweaked it afterwards. And it just so happened that it worked with those rule sets. Those people, those guys, they kind of made the rules as far as those things were concerned.
Yeah, it's interesting, Russ. I was recently. I went back and started reading all the Uncanny X-Men, and I started with a couple of issues before Neil picked up the art chores, and it was, it was. I'm trying to be kind here. It was very just systematic and kind of boring, and
Yeah.
and then I get open the first page, open the cover to I guess it's issue 63, and it's that pulled back shot, the establishing shot, and it felt like the opening sequence in a movie. Like I almost expected credits to start rolling. And it just felt so cinematic. And then you turn the pages further into the book, and you've got all of these harsh diagonal panels where the angel is flying across the page, or a rocket's being shot somewhere, and I'm like, whoa. And I had forgotten those pages because I hadn't looked at them since I was a kid. And then I flipped further and further along, and John Byrne was doing it too, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is okay. And I sometimes I equate it to when you're growing up and you are around musicians. My younger brother was a musician, and he was one of those kids that he couldn't read music. He didn't know the technical end of things. He learned the guitar by listening to the radio, and he's just naturally talented. And so there are those naturally talented musicians, and then there are those kids that grew up with mom and dad buying everything. They got them all the music lessons. They know everything technically about the instrumentation and the music and all that. But when they play, it's very synthetic, and there's not a lot of feel to it. But he went out on stage and he played. He just lit up the stage, and everybody in the crowd was mesmerized because he played everything with such feeling and emotion that he just stood out. And it's kind of the same thing.
I think you're absolutely right. It's like it's how you approach it, how you come to those pages, and how you come to the art, whatever the art form may be. It's a constant battle with being an artist that you look and you strive for perfection, but you know deep in your heart that perfection is not going to sell.
Right.
And style and uniqueness and drama and energy is what sells you. That's what sells your pages. And I fight with that. I'm like, I wish I'd done that arm better, or I wish I'd done that bit of anatomy better. And it's like again, with the rule set there, you need to understand the rules in order to break them. You look at some of Neil Adams' stuff and Busmer as well, okay? And there is plenty of stretching of limbs and weirdness in some of the faces and some of the positions that the bodies are put into. But it doesn't matter because they knew exactly what was going on, and they bent them to their will, and they let their style come out, and that's why they were such exciting artists, because they let themselves come out. So you can't rely on style to carry you. You have to understand the basics, much like we're talking about here with composition. You have to understand the basics, but really it's from the gut. It's you create on the fly, and it happens. And you're right. You can run by the numbers as much as you like. And it's just not going to produce the same kind of output.
Right.
If you look at and I always go back to the excitement for me was the original, like the first 10 issues of Captain America. You look at how those panels are broken up. I mean, there are no squares there. It's just the characters are overlapping the panels. They're jumping from one place to another. But Kirby was drawing as fast as he possibly could, and so therefore you didn't think, you felt, and that was it. And you look all that, and the stretching and the squeeze. Forget anatomy. It was impression. Basically that's what he was drawing, and he was doing a lot of squash and stretch. In fact, if you look at Captain America, from one panel to another, that face was not consistent at all. It was just he said this is the character, and here's the color that carries it, and this is what he's doing. That's Captain America. There was no, thinking about the rule of threes or whatever. I mean, whatever he drew instinctively, they had been drawing a lot over the years prior to that. So he got through a few, tens of thousands of drawings by the time he hit Captain America. So, and in many ways, natural artists are like a natural baseball player or a basketball player or somebody who knows how to, how to throw the ball. It's instinctive. You don't think about it, or hitting a ball. It's like you don't think about, well, I got to put my wrist and grab the bat a certain way. You pick it up, and it's an instinct of where your eye is and where you place the bat. Same way with any kind of throwing of a ball with control. And so that's what happens with natural artists. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And of course, Glenn said this is why people can't learn how to draw well. If you could learn to draw as well as Kirby, we'd all be Kirby.
Yeah.
Well, is that a cat wolf? It's called talent, varying degrees, of course, but you can't learn how to do it without having some kind of skill set in that area to begin with. I view talent as really the way that you look and you process things. More than some people process things more differently than others.
But we're all unique,
right?
And that's why some people, it doesn't matter how hard I hit someone down the club, or how well I might do my kata. I'm never going to be a good footballer. Do you know what I mean? So that's one set of activity that I do. I do martial arts, but that doesn't mean that I'd be okay. I'd be any good at any other kind of physical activity. People are built differently. And I do what I do. I'm an artist. That's what I do. I've always been in production. I've always had an eye for that kind of thing. But some people have no eye whatsoever. And so there is, you don't want to get into the whole sort of like, some people are born talented and some aren't, and that's the end of it. It's not quite that way, but certainly people have a bent towards certain things, and it's almost like they encourage themselves once they find some success in what they're doing, they push in that direction. So, not everybody can draw comics. Not everybody can draw a Mona Lisa. Not everybody can score a goal for England. Do you know what I mean? It's just that's the way it is, and you just have to live with that.
I've seen a lot of unique people who can't draw, no matter how they have tried. This is Glenn.
Yeah, something else interesting is a lot of people have talent that is within them that they have no idea is there. They'll pick up something on a weekend because a buddy or something's doing it, and they start doing it. And I'll use woodworking for an example. My grandfather was a carpenter, and he built houses and stuff in the 40s and 50s. And I have always loved woodworking, but once I got out of high school, I had never really had any, ways or means to do any woodworking. And I have an older brother that's mentally disabled, and to keep himself busy around the house, he does crafts and stuff. And he works out in the yard, and we have a shed in the back corner of my mom's house, and the floor was kind of getting slanted and stuff because of the ground moving. And he went in and he looked at it, and he pulled everything out of the shed. Now, he's mentally disabled, so he doesn't know anything about leveling land. But now keep in mind, he's got his grandfather's blood coursing through his veins. He pulled everything out of that shed, and with rocks and piles of this and that and the other, he went and he leveled the floor in that shed, and he relayed cinder blocks down and planks of wood. And my mom was telling me about it, and I went and I looked at it, and I was just blown away because he has that ability in him. He's very crafty. He's very creative. And it's just people have that sort of thing in them, and sometimes they don't even know they have it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No matter what it is.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. It's just kind of like you have people who are on the spectrum, and they can do things that they might not be able to do one thing, but they can do something really well. My younger son is, he's very good at math. I know he didn't get that from me, so and he enjoys doing math. I definitely know he didn't get that from me.
Right.
But so it's
everybody's got something.
I'm telling you, it's just how it
Yeah.
is.
And by the way, congratulations on your daughter's cover. That's really, really good.
Yes.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic job. How old is she?
17.
Wow, and she draws like that, man.
Yeah, no, she has talent.
Yeah, I saw that and I was
Yeah.
like, that's
Wow.
Chris's daughter. Like, yes. Like, holy crap.
Yeah, beautiful work.
Got
So
some.
Glenn decides to put up the Oxford Dictionary: talent, people possessing natural aptitude or skill. Right. And then talking about our son taught himself long division at 5 and does it in his head. Yeah. I'm not reading that one. Great ghost, Rodney. Brown dog this.
Oh, these are for those that weren't in the beginning. I'm doing the gaming convention here in a couple of weeks. So I'm doing Pac-Man and Blinky and Pinky and all those ghosts, and I'm going to put them all together in Photoshop and do a composition and make a print for the gaming folks. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just doing the line work, and then I'm going to scan it in and color it and convert the lines to the proper colors and all that fun stuff. So that's what I'm doing.
But to the composition thing, I think sometimes the rules are there so when something's off, you could kind of have a checklist on maybe trying to figure it out, maybe problem solving what the problem is, why it looks off.
Well, some people can start, certain aptitudes, and then that shifts into the art, the ability to analyze, there are things when drawing is an analysis, is really putting down on a piece of paper your analysis of what you've seen, basically, in a visual in a graphic form. It's kind of like animation is that way. So when you're telling stories, you're really analyzing what's the point of that scene, or what's the point of that story. There's always a story picture that will completely get you into that point of that story.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of that, so when you're looking at a page and you have a script in front of you, and you just have your panels, it tells you what's on which panel. You have to decide which so does the most important panel have to be the biggest panel on the page?
No. In fact, sometimes, one of the things I learned really early, I didn't like being told how to put the page together and say how many there are. I was 14 the first time I ever tried to work with somebody else as a writer, and I was the artist and this person was the writer, and I did my first page and they went, well, why did you do that? Why did you do? I told you to do this. And I said, wait a minute, I'm not your wrist.
Right? Yeah.
I immediately knew that it wasn't going to work. Where was my voice going to be? If you want somebody else, so I knew I wasn't going to go through, through that collaborative page, that stage in life. And then like, for example, when you get a script in animation, you're not told how many scenes to put in. I mean, you'll have a set. They'll say that there is, this is what's happening, and there'll be dialogue, but it's almost impossible for that writer to tell you what to do. You have to look at it and storyboard it, and that's where the storyboard artist comes into play. The talent of being able to cinematically pick your camera positions and where where to place the camera and how many panels to do it in and how to put that scene together. When I say a scene, I mean you might have a sequence where there's a time period that this is from this point to that point, and then you make up how many scenes there are in that section. But you really do need to be able to analyze the script and say, this doesn't make sense. And if all you're doing is following verbatim, well, then you're just a wrist, and there is no artistic element to it. It's just a pure technical thing. And many times in animation, writers overwrite and then expect to just cut things out, and that's a real waste of effort and energy.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, that's why you hear about like Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman and the way that they write. I think Alan Moore's the one that's most infamous for it, where he kind of writes an entire. He describes the designs on the wall. I've read Alan Moore's script, so I was like, yeah, that's okay. I don't think I want to work with Alan Moore.
Yeah, as much as I like a lot of what Alan Moore has done, I don't think he allows anybody else to tell the story.
Yeah.
It's his story, and the artist is there to do his story. Whereas maybe more traditionally, especially back in the day, writers would allow the artist to do the storytelling from panel to panel, as it were.
And I find that interesting because C and I are working together, and when we first started, it was, okay, here's the story. I typically will thumbnail stuff out, the entire story, just for me. And I will give the thumbnails to the artist, but I will say that this is just a guide. It's not a roadmap. And there might be 2 or 3 particular scenes that I want to look a certain way. Other than that, it's up to you. And that's how I've worked for probably the last 10 years when collaborating with artists. And it seems to have worked out for me, because you have to give the artist that leeway to be creative.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Exactly.
And that many cases is the artist is looked upon as the wrist.
Well, I've gotten scripts before, and I don't really have a preference myself, but I've gotten scripts before where it's just like, this happens on this page, and sometimes that goes into a little bit more work, than having told what happens in each panel. I've gotten scripts from that extreme to another extreme. Again, I haven't gotten an Alan Moore script. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think eventually, when you start off, you take any job you can.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is. So you get all kinds of scripts come at you. You get those very tight scripts where you're literally drawing every angle that the writer tells you to draw. They're suggesting, whether it's a mid, shot, close up, a fast shot, instead of just establishing shot and I'll just let you get on with it. And then you get like the Stan Lee method where they say, well, this happens on this page, break it up, off you go. You're the pro. And anywhere in between. But I think what happens eventually is that people see your work when you've done enough of it, that people see it and be familiar with it. And they kind of, different writers will come to you. And it tends to be at the moment, I mean, certainly for the last 2 or 3 years, whenever I've been drawing for other people or with other people, the scripts I've been given have been sort of that halfway house. So they give me enough detail that I can actively produce a good story, but at the same time enough freedom to just let my abilities as a storyteller come through as well as the script.
Yep. And I've heard that Chris Claremont's scripts are a lot like Alan Moore's.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I've actually read of one. I'm like, oh, geez. I hope I'm not doing this to somebody.
That's John Brown Dog. He was asking whose work is up there. Yeah, I don't think I've ever read a Chris Claremont script, but he was pretty. Yeah, he started real young writing those scripts, huh?
I don't know how young he was. I know he started as an editor with like, was it Marvel first? With working with Marv Wolfman. He actually was the one in the X-Men when Neil Adams was doing it and they were fighting the Sentinels. Roy Thomas couldn't figure out how to get rid of the Sentinels. And Chris was standing in the room when they were having the conversation, and he said he's the one that made a suggestion about having them go after the sun. And that's kind of where he got his start. But I don't know how old he was back then, but I'm thinking it was like 67 or 68.
Yeah, we're talking about years, right? 68.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean those are kind of considered X-Men's golden years, isn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Days of Future Past. Days of Future Past is still one of my favorite stories by Claremont, and unfortunately, they just messed that up in the movie.
That was more John Byrne than it was Chris Claremont. Of course, it depends on who you ask.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Isn't that always the case?
But he was in the movie. He was in that movie. I didn't realize it the first time I saw it, but I saw it a couple of weeks ago again just to check out a few things, and he was there in a meeting with Trask. Chris Claremont had a very small part in that movie.
Oh,
that
really?
was fun to watch.
I never noticed that.
Yeah, it was
kind of like it's kind of like Rob Liefeld being in Deadpool. I still haven't seen that part. I don't know where he's at now.
I didn't know that. I noticed Frank Miller on RoboCop 2, but I didn't know that Liefeld was on the first one or the second one.
No, the first one. He could have been in the second one, and I didn't notice that one either. So that's a possibility. Yeah, I don't know where he was. Now, Stan was the DJ at the strip club.
Yeah,
right.
Yes.
But Stan had that ability to stand out. It didn't matter. And I don't know if you would consider that talent or just natural charisma or what. But,
yeah, maybe. When did Kirby died? Which year was it?
94?
Yeah, I think 94.
96.
Okay. Do you think do you think it was Marvel will allow him to be like Stan Lee making cameos, or do you think Stan Lee, as with his ego, wouldn't allow him to be on?
Oh
to
no,
be in the
that
movies?
that wouldn't be the case. Question would be whether Kirby would want to do it.
Yeah.
That's would be what
Yeah,
the question
yeah,
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I would almost think that the fans would demand it.
Yeah, he wouldn't. I don't think he'd be as prominent as Stan Lee is in those, because remember now, Stan is a showman. Stan is a salesman.
Right.
He sold Marvel.
Right.
He was True Believers and Excelsior and all these catchphrases and everything. It's what brought attention to Marvel. Kirby, not so much. you know.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
Kirby
I
was,
think you're right.
questioned in the room on chained to the desk, drawing all the images. So.
I'm saying that because he was in the Hulk, in the Hulk movie when the trial, I believe the name of the movie is, because here in Portugal we get the titles all messed up. Translation is just the worst of the worst. But he was in the. Yeah, he was. Jack Kirby was in the trial of the Hulk.
In the jury box. Yeah, I do remember that.
No, that was Stan Lee. That was Stan Lee. He was making a.
Was it?
Yeah, Stan Lee was.
Okay,
yes.
Maybe it was Stan Lee. I don't know. I guess I don't.
He was in another scene when he had to draw a suspect or something like that. Yeah. Very, very great movies.
That came out. I saw that when I was 5, so you'll have to excuse me.
Yeah, I'm a little bit older than you. Yeah.
Young whippersnapper, you.
Yeah, I guess so.
Making us all feel old.
Oh, I don't need him to make me feel old.
Yeah.
You just need to try to stand up, huh, Ross?
Yeah.
After sitting at the desk for a couple of hours.
Yeah. It's funny, like I train 3 times a week, karate, and I'm up and down doing all kinds of stuff. And then I come home and I reach down for my keys and I get this. It doesn't matter when you're old. There's just some things you got to groan about.
Yeah.
Oh, you young whippersnappers, you all. There you go. Ah.
So, Russ, you were talking about, in the Bronze Age and everything, and the panels just being square. When we get into square, rectangle, what have you, and the action and everything happening in them. Well, I guess was it like late 80s, early 90s when we started seeing them kind of reshape the way the panels look?
I think mid 80s. I think you're looking at the end of the Bronze Age. I think you're looking at people like Neil Adams and Stalin, who started doing crazy layouts, and things changed from there.
Steranko.
Yeah, I mean, Steranko was earlier on, and he did some, like, for instance, both Steranko and Kirby were like playing with photocopies and photography on their artwork and doing some really great stuff. I mean, Steranko's layouts were, I wouldn't call them crazy, I'd call them inspired.
Yeah.
They were telling a story, and they were also they were almost shooting for high art in some ways. Because of the way that he did them, but when you're talking about layouts, as far as crazy layouts, like starting to put different kind of size and shape panels and all that kind of stuff, I think really sort of the people that made that happen more than anyone, I think, was probably Neil Adams and Stalin, and because they put those things out there. That doesn't mean to say there weren't other people doing it and I just don't know, but they're the people that affected me most, I would say. Because even when you got to the late 70s, I remember picking up Captain Britain from Marvel UK, and that was pretty much done in bulk standard squares, and that was 77, 78. So that was the standard way of doing it. There wasn't this. The layouts are a little bit more flamboyant, but not a lot. So it really sort of the end of the Bronze Age was when it really started to get going, I think.
Russ, who was doing the artwork on Captain Britain then?
Oh God, there was Herb Trimp. I know that John Buscema did a run for it as well. Yeah, they had some great artists on there. Roy Thomas. Yeah, quite a few different names on there. And that was I personally, I'm not an Excalibur lover. I really like Alan Davies, but I'm not a fan of the second second iteration of Captain Britain. I just love the original. So I don't know, it's a bit cheesy in places, but I just love it. I just think it's great.
Okay.
I love the magic in it. And that kind of stuff.
Steve Ditko. Ditko was doing a lot of different things, with his various, like his, Doctor Strange, and he had otherworldly thing. He would, even if he was working within the panels, it was, you start with that. You go from breaking down the just standard, characters standing around and maybe just flying through the world. His sense of place and otherworldly live, just kind of probably was a seed to start everybody else breaking out, because he was doing that in the 50s.
Yeah, but I think there is that sort of combination of the layout and the design of the page, and then the what's going on inside the panel. And I think if you look back at those artists, those Bronze Age artists, I mean, obviously Ditko before them, and you see the content of the panel doing all the heavy lifting. Yeah, that's what's doing it. And I mean, I've got pages here. So I've got inspiration board up beside me, and so if you just look,
I'm gonna put you up. Go ahead.
There's a page to boost some people's, and look at the energy. And this is a quiet page. And you put one there. That's a square panel, and yet look at the movement and the energy, and that's the kind of stuff they were putting into it. If you sit and if you go check out the right the way back to Kirby, all the way through the Fantastic Four runs, just the content of each panel, just the amount of energy. So it just goes to show you don't have to do clever things with your layouts and pop out of panels and all that kind of stuff to create energy and drive a story. No reason why you shouldn't do it. I do it. I think a lot of people do, but don't rely on it.
It just kind of breaks up monotony sometimes.
It can, and it can be good, but rely on the composition of your panels rather than the composition of your page to keep your story going.
What I really love about that page that you just showed, Russ, I'm kind of related to something in writing where the word "said," they consider it an invisible word. He said, she said, and it's okay to use "said" over and over, because a lot of times you'll see a lot of new writers write with this, they have the adjective, or they want to throw out there, they cried out, on and on. But "said" is an invisible word where the dialogue, you can break up the dialogue with that word "said" and it won't register. And I think the same thing happens with those panels like you just showed, because I could sit there, if I sat there and I looked at those panels, I could see the panel lines, but I could still see the story clearly, and the panels kind of disappear and the story unfolds.
Yeah, you forget that the panels are there. You just flow through from one image to the next. Yeah, definitely. But that's, these guys were genius. So we're all standing on the shoulders of giants.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny that when I grew up on Buscema and guys like that, you don't, and I guess because we're all artists and we're seeing everything through the artistic eye, but at an early age when you don't realize why it's so appealing, it then after you've been drawing for a couple of years and you go back and you revisit those books, then you're like, it's rediscovering them all over again. And you're like, oh, that's why that resonated so much with me at a young age, because it worked so well.
Yeah, definitely. That's the way I came to him. I also found myself drawing a certain way because that's the way my mind had interpreted what I'd seen when I was younger.
Yeah.
And then coming back to those pages and discovering the economy of line and the lack of detail made me realize what was important about the pages, what was important about the way that the art worked, where the energy came from in those panels. And it's actually instructed my drawing from a different perspective. I now look for the economy of line in everything that I'm doing. I don't want to put extra stuff in. I don't want to mess it up. But at the same time, you want to get over the aspects that you want to get over. It's all, but pretty much a big part of what I was saying earlier about style is like I've got hundreds of books sitting up in front of me, and I love so much of the style that's going on there. I tend to buy books for the art, not for the stories. Although I do read the stories, but the art, I'm shallow.
The same way.
Yeah, me too. Don't feel
and so I can look through so many of these art styles. Like you can go from Manola to Jim Lee. Do you know what I mean? And you can look at both of them and think, I love what they're doing there. I love that aspect of Jim Lee, or I love that aspect of Mike Manola, or whoever the artist may be. And you have to be really careful not to try and put all of those things in your styles.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, something bright and shiny, I want that in my style. And it's like, no. You have to. I did it recently where I was drawing something, and I'd got myself a Brian Bolland book, and I've been really affected by it. I mean, I've been affected by Brian Bolland my whole life, but my style is nothing like his. You can't see his work in my work. You just can't see it there. You can't see any effect. And yet I was very much affected by him when I was younger, buying 2000 AD and all that kind of stuff. But I bought a book of his art, and it was like, this is so good. And I was really affected. And it made me do some things that I wasn't expecting I'd do. And actually, it was the wrong turn. I shouldn't have done them. I'm still not particularly impressed by what I did. And it wasn't like I was trying to copy Bolland's style at all. It had just affected me greatly because it's such an intensely brilliant style. He's intensely brilliant. And so you have to be very careful about what you do take into your own style and what you don't. And you have to be you. You do have to be you. The only way for you to be truly successful at this is to be you and be unique.
Well, I think about just piggybacking onto what you just said. If you really, whatever it is that entices you about a style, analyze it and understand what it is. What is the essence of it? Yeah. And then you could take it and say, how do I interpret it through my lens, through my pencil? I mean, and they're all just pretty basic things. It's just how you as an artist are able to then put it down. But it takes you practice, and just keep doing it, and don't worry about not getting it perfect. The first time around, just run it through your pencil. You have to assimilate. It's like, we all eat an apple. You could all eat apples, okay? And it could be, and if we all had the ability to eat the exact same apple, you'd consume it, but it would come out differently within your body. No, but what I'm just saying is that the energy that you get from it, and then you interpret that energy, and it becomes part of you, and you're not going to turn into. I'm not going to turn into Mike.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, MarV or C. Michael, or Rodney. We're all going to be different.
And the important thing is you should want that.
Yeah.
You should not want to be another artist. Right. I'm inspired by several artists very specifically, and then generally by many artists. But you must always be looking for the way that you draw, the way that you interpret things, and it takes some strength there as well, and some discipline, because you have to trust yourself. You have to trust in what you do, because it's so easy to go, oh no, I'm getting that wrong. I'll do what that artist does. No. Stick with it. Be you. See it through.
You can be inspired, but if you try, as you said, if you copy, all you're going to be is a bad imitation.
Exactly. Yeah.
You'll only see, oh yeah, I know where you got that, or yeah. You know what, this artist did a lot better than you did. If you're going to be somebody, be yourself, because you might be introducing something that someone else hasn't, or you're introducing a new interpretation. I've been studying coloring for the last few years, because I've always been a pencil and paper, black and white person, but studying the color of and I knew that I was not going to be one of those who wanted to overdo the coloring. So I'd go back to the golden age colorists, and I'd see how simple they did that. And then I went back and remembered my favorite coloring was back of the 1950s with the Rawhide Kid. You look at those colors and the interpretation, and they weren't realistic colors. No. All of that is you would use purple for the face because you wanted to create some impression. It was very impressionistic. It was an impressionistic time of the 50s, breaking away from the standard super realistic or just basic colors. And there's energy in the way you color something, and that I thought, well, that's the way I want to go.
Interesting thought that I was thinking about, Russ, when you were talking about not becoming your influences. And I've been noticing this a lot lately, scrolling through Instagram and Facebook and looking at other artists who came of age in the 90s when they were employed by Marvel to draw like one of the 7 that left and went to Image.
I was just thinking the same thing, Rodney. I was just thinking the exact same thing. Yeah.
And if you look at their stuff now, that they've had 20 years to remove themselves from that, how they've blossomed and how much different their artwork, how much better their artwork is. Yeah, definitely. And I won't name any names on live, but I'll mention somebody in particular backstage. And his artwork is just stunning. And I've really rediscovered him in the past 6 months. Right. And it's just absolutely amazing. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You kind of retard your development by doing trying to ape somebody, and that was a big word back in the 90s. Oh, he's just aping this guy, or he's just aping that guy.
Well, a lot of that was down to house styles, wasn't it? That's the way they wanted you to draw. I mean, I sent submissions to Marvel 95 and was accepted as a penciler, although never got any work back then. But the work that I was doing was effectively aping Jim Lee.
Right.
And they loved it. It was like, oh yeah, that's great. That's exactly what we want. And since then I've discovered that that's not the way I should be drawing at all.
Yeah.
that's not me. It's not me in any way, shape, or form.
And you actually lived it.
yeah. I mean, I didn't live it as well as successfully as those other people did, but yeah, I was, that was part of my journey at that point in time. And you've got to be true to yourself. You've got to make sure that the best compliment I've ever been paid was, oh, I saw some work the other day and I knew that was a Russ Leach.
Yeah.
When somebody says that to you, you're like, yes, that's fantastic. They didn't look at it and go, oh, somebody's copying XYZ. They thought that's Russ. I know you did that. Yeah. So no, really good. That's the best compliment.
I would say one thing, just in that in this conversation, many times what you think when you try and apply for something, and you get turned down because you don't fit into their scheme of things. That's probably many times that is the best way that you can develop yourself. I mean, I might have said told a story once or twice, but not on this in this show, this group. I applied at Disney's back in the summer of '77, and I got turned down because I was too old. I was 27 years old. I was too old, and I had too much experience to be molded into the Disney way.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I was 27, and I had only been working in the industry for like 2 years, but I had 2 feature films on my, under my belt. I was working at Nelvana and worked at one of their shows, the Cosmic Christmas, and then I went over to I was at with Richard Williams on Raggedy Ann and Andy. I'd been trained at Tubby the Tube at New York Tech with Popeye and Mighty Mouse animators, and I was at the Patty Freeling animating for what's his name? Frizz Freeling. And they said that Disney says, well, I'm sorry, you're just too old and experienced to be molded. And from that point on, the next thing I was doing, like 6 or 7 months later, I'm doing Boba Fett, the Star Wars Holiday Special. I'm working on stuff that help develop my style and my talents that I would have been just a Disney hack. And I'm sorry, but I'm just saying that I would have been forced to do that because they didn't want people with their own styles. They wanted to be house style.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's amazing.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's amazing as a kid, you all start off, I'm sure we all started off pretty much the same way. You find your love for comics or movies or whatever it is, and you're in your bedroom and you're by yourself or you're with a couple of buddies and you're going through this process, but you're really going through this process alone. And then you have no idea when you get out in the real world that they don't want, a lot of people don't want that individuality. They want you, they have to be able to mold you into a cookie cutter artist for their corporate product. And it's just like, wow.
I know. And it makes you say, wait a minute, I thought, but you know what? What happened, in many cases, the beginning, if it depends on what age you're at. But when I was looking at Disney material and I was being influenced by the people that Disney used to create his house, the Mouse House. And all of those were individual artists. They had their own style. I mean, Bill Titler is very different from Art Babbitt or Milt Kahl or Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson. They were developed. They had their own styles. Well, what happened is that as the world develops over a period of time, the younger people coming up underneath them are being told a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but we don't want you to bring something else that would go against that style. And so your raw energy can be looked at and say, this is a detriment. We can't use you.
Yeah.
And that's where you want to become part of it. And say, I'm going to be able to be one of those and do. No, they're not looking for you to be an individual. You got to feel you are to carry on with what has been established. And, as I said, you are a wrist, not an artist.
Yeah. I think that actually caused some problems for them too, because Arrival Studio came out from after Disney had their, this was of course I think the 50s or 60s, had their boycott, and they went and formed another studio. I can't remember the name of the studio, which had artwork, because at first Disney was really sticking to the closely realistic style, like the Snow White, the Seven Dwarfs, Cinderella, and everything.
That was UPA.
What is it?
UPA in the 50s. That was United, producers, or what. It was UPA that became. You see a lot of that stylistic, unrealistic,
Yeah.
Art. That's where Mr. Magoo. That's where all of those, it came out of. There was a lot of very, very, more art. Fine artists would go into it, and graphic artists. Walt Kelly was there.
Okay.
Art, Vip. There was a lot of the various, the 1950-ish stylistic art, and they were influenced more by Europeans.
Right.
And
okay.
Graphic, elements to it.
Yeah, and a lot of people were gravitating towards that. And that kind of scared Disney for a little bit, didn't it?
Oh yeah. They had was it Walt? Not Walt Kelly. Anyway, they did a lot of. They tried to do a lot of different things, and Rudy Toot. You look at that UPA thing with Frankie and Johnny, and that's a really jazzy piece. They were using jazz music and doing a lot of different elements, and it was very un-Disney-esque.
It's kind of a rebellious animation.
Very much so.
You guys remember those?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Marv.
Was it better to work on Disney in your time, John, or back in the day? Because today we hear a lot of the backlash that Disney is having from the people that are working there, especially the VFX department. Did you work in a very stable environment back then, or
no? There was
no.
No, there has never been a stable environment. Well, I mean.
So you couldn't make plans. You couldn't make plans like. You start working for Disney, and you were thinking about maybe I will buy a house or a car, or have thinking about 10 years from now I'll be this or I'll be that.
No.
So never cross nobody's mind that kind of feeling.
I worked. The longest I ever worked for was for Rich Animation, and he was a Disney person and Bluth type of person, and we did the Swan Princess, so we did a whole bunch of direct to video productions. I worked for that for 10 years, for them, and then when computers came in, that was it. I think I was 51 years old. So the 1999, 2000, and in 2001, and everything just came to a crashing halt. So I'm like 50 years old, and I'm unemployable because I am a 2D animator and not a kid out of school that just needs minimum.
Right.
So no, basically you can't really count on a corporation to do anything. There were periods of time that a few people get involved with things. I mean, many people who were who were major forces and artists for the Disney rebirth of the '90s. They had great salaries for the beginning, and then they were developed, and you had DreamWorks. They were competing with Disney's, and they were hiring people away. People were making $300,000, $500,000. Some of the people were on $1 million contracts there, and that lasted after about 2 years, 3 years, and then you figure, okay, I can this will keep going. But no, there is a period of time, by 1999 or what have you, after Toy Story had come out, they were looking at generating just nothing but computer graphics, and the only people who were getting trained in that were coming out of schools. There were hundreds and hundreds of new graduates who had those tools and the abilities to follow instructions, and they were the ones who were being hired and developed. And there are a lot of sad stories of people who were just totally let go at Disney's because they were just they were shutting down, and DreamWorks were doing the same thing. So yeah, as a I do not understand how people are, and you want to be dream, you want to follow a dream, but you need to be an artist and think about doing your art, and if you able to do it in some way, and then do if you have to be a risk, if you have to be somebody else that has to follow instructions and follow and do work, have time for yourself to be able to create your own projects, because that's where you're going to get your best your satisfaction, because again you use your tools to be able to the best of your abilities, but save energy for your own dream projects, your own passion projects, which is what we are doing here on Sketchy Saturdays.
Yeah.
Exactly. And John, that's happening today with Amazon and Netflix and Apple TV. Amazon is powerful, big enough and powerful enough to create buy Thursday Night Football and hire all these people from Fox Broadcasting to go over to Thursday Night Football. And now they're talking about expanding the National Football League into. They're not just going to put one team in London; they're going to put an entire division, and it's all of this new, the Amazons and the Apples and stuff. It's the same situation 50 years later, and it's just nuts. So you've got these people that have been working for these places, and they've been hired by Amazon and they've been hired by Apple, and through experience, the same thing is going to happen to those people in 4 years. They're going to be let go because they rode the crest, they rode the wave of startup, and everything's going to settle, and it's going to find the water will find its level, and then everybody will be let go, so the profits can even out, and they can it's cyclical.
It very much so. Well, the news departments and TV and networks, they've been letting go newspapers. All of the writers and photographers that used to bring you your newspaper and even your network news, the local news, they would be cutting out. We've gone through a lot of corporate, takeovers, and it is great to have your dream to do, to emulate what you've seen with growing up, and that's what's what is passion. Have your talent, your technical talents that you can sell, and do something, and besides having a technical talent that is usable, be able to, deliver it on time, and do your thing as best as possibly can, but on time, and then have the energy to create your own, brand, thing, because you can do that with crowdfunding.
Yeah.
You do have the ability to do something that's your passion project, and develop that.
Yeah.
So
That's where I'm going next.
and that's the thing. And artists have always had to do that. Michelangelo, he wasn't doing, stuff just because he was Michelangelo. The Pope wanted a decoration on the Sistine Chapel, basically. And so, artists have always had patrons, and have always, relied upon people who enjoyed what they were doing, but at the same time, they had to deliver a product of some sort.
Well, yeah, just like that, as the Sistine Chapel, he wasn't really a painter. He could paint, but he was a sculptor. He enjoyed sculpting more than painting.
Right.
Well, they say that as an artist, all you need is 1,000 dedicated fans, or even 1,000 people that just want to buy your work, and you can make a living out of it. Just 1,000. Yeah. There's not a lot of people, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to cut through the clutter, because there's so many people who have technical abilities, and because of the computer, the computer can help you, present a polished piece. But what will cut up through the clutter is you as an artist doing. What are you saying with that? It's kind of like back in the 90s when you could do with Word and a whole other element to be able to produce a good-looking manuscript, and being able to present it to to a publisher and do all that. A lot of writers, became being able to produce a book that was able to be sold, and that was something brand new. And I know it doesn't seem like that was such a big to do, but prior to being able to print out a document and a script, you had to type it, on a manual typewriter, and it had to look good.
Yeah.
And make a really good impression. I know that doesn't seem like much, but back then that was a major thing.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, because if you mess up on that typewriter, you got to start all over again.
Yes.
Get some whiteout. Whiteout's not going to cut it to look professional.
Yeah.
No whiteout on a resume.
Yeah. And that's just something, we all, we forget how difficult things were. Again, I started out in the mid 60s, and it was, it was hot type.
That's crazy.
Well, we have covered. We're an hour and 23 minutes in, gentlemen.
Already.
I think we should go around the room and let everybody know where they can find us and where they can see us next, and we can smile at them and they can smile at us. Russ, go ahead and tell us where we can find you, sir.
Yeah, give me 2 seconds. I'm in the middle of something. Yeah, I'm done now. It's okay. I can't concentrate. I'm getting old. I can't concentrate on two things at once.
Yeah, it's hard.
I can listen to you guys and I can do something, but I can't actually talk to you and do something. I have to stop to talk to you. So you've had my undivided attention, just not when I speak. I have to speak. I can't do anything else when I speak. I have trouble breathing and walking as well. Yeah, you can find me. You can find me in the pages of Batman in the UK coming to Europe soon. You can find me on Amazon with Marcosia. Also, my own book, Only Death Can Save Us. You can pick up volume 2, which is still on Indiegogo, and you can get the original version. There's a few left of volume 1. If you want the re-edited version of volume 1, you can get that from New Haven Publishing. They're at all good stores globally. And you can probably pick up still the last copy of Doctor Who magazine with my last entry for the moment. My run has finished there for a year. I had a year's run with Doctor Who. Likely that I'll be back again in the future, but for now I'm onto other things. So yeah, all that stuff there you can find out about at russleach.com.
All right. See, John's ready to go. Go ahead, John.
Oh, okay. You can find me on Kickstarter right now with Bloodwing Angel Chronicles of Book 3 and 1 and 2, and they're pretty cool stuff. So I got about another 10 days to go, and I'm working on book 4 now. So
right.
Get me on Kickstarter.
All right, awesome. Rodney.
Hey guys, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Rodney Fyke Art. Also, you can find me on the Hasm YouTube channel, HAZZUM, the Hasm YouTube channel. Or the easiest way to find me is to go to Linktree under Rodney Fyke. I am on the Indie Comics Network on Thursday nights for Thursday Night Throwdown, and I am here as well on Tuesday, Saturdays. And I think I am also officially a member on Tuesday nights for Dispatches Beyond the Box.
Yeah, sure.
And but I do books, independent artists for the better part of 30 years. And this is one of our books, Pitter Patter. Some books that I'm working on now. That's a variant cover for issue 2. But yeah, so that's what I do, and that's where you can find me. And
all right,
yeah,
awesome. Marty.
Well, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at MarV the Sin Killer or MarV Sin Killer. Soon, on the 26th, I will get the print run of the Sin Killer Chapter 1 Gabriel Reaper of Souls, and I hope if I can find Portugal in the Kickstarter, when we do the campaign, I can't find Portugal, so I have to find out a way to make the Kickstarter campaign. Once I do that, I'll put there some not only the books, the proofs too, some original art and T-shirts. So stay tuned, and I'll see you next week, guys. Thank you.
All right, let's see. All right, somebody wants to ask a question. If they can ask a question, maybe we could take a second to answer it, but they got to ask it quick. I'll put this up quick. All right, and of course, I'm C. Michael Lanning, filling in for Mike Jimmy, who is out doing a con, actually working this weekend. We wish him all the best. I think he'll be back here next week. So you can find me at my Linktree /C Michael Lanning. That has Facebook, Twitter, all that other jazz and social nonsense. And also, of course, like you'll say, on Dispatches from Outside the Box right here on the Indie Comics Network. On Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. This week we'll be talking about the influence of Stephen King. So tune in for that. Nice. And with that, let's go. Bye.
Take care.